Ethan Reed was a paradox, a walking contradiction wrapped in the guise of a model college student. At 20 years old, he possessed a charm that bordered on magnetic, an easy confidence that drew people to him like moths to a flame. He was handsome, with tousled dark hair, piercing blue eyes that seemed to hold a universe of secrets, and a smile that could disarm even the most cynical. But beneath the charismatic surface lay a restlessness, a simmering discontent that whispered of a life less ordinary. His academic record was stellar. His professors spoke of his brilliance with a mixture of admiration and awe, and his peers envied his effortless ability to excel without seeming to break a sweat. Yet Ethan felt a strange disconnect, a sense of being an actor playing a role rather than a participant in his own life. Professor Evelyn Caldwell was a beacon of intellect and grace in the somewhat predictable landscape of Crestwood College. At 35, she possessed a timeless beauty, her raven hair cascading down her back like a waterfall, framing a face that was both striking and kind. Her eyes, the color of emeralds, sparkled with passion whenever she spoke of her beloved Renaissance literature. And her voice, a melodious contralto, held students captive, transporting them to the world of Shakespeare, Milton, and Donne. Evelyn was more than just a professor. She was a force of nature. She challenged her students to think critically, to question assumptions, and to delve into the complexities of the human condition. She was respected, admired, and perhaps, by a select few, even revered. From the moment Ethan stepped into Professor Caldwell's Literature of the Renaissance class, he was captivated. It wasn't just her beauty, though that certainly played a role. It was her passion, her unwavering dedication to her subject. The way her eyes lit up when she spoke of a particularly poignant sonnet or a daring act of rebellion in a Shakespearean play. He found himself drawn into the world of courtly love, betrayal, and intrigue, not just because of the texts themselves, but because of the way Professor Caldwell brought them to life. His initial attempts to garner her attention were subtle, almost imperceptible. He would linger after class, feigning a need for clarification on a particular point. His questions often leading to broader discussions that allowed him to bask in her presence a little longer. He would position himself in the front row, his gaze fixed on her, hanging on her every word. He'd make insightful comments during class discussions, not to show off, but to impress her with his own intellectual prowess. Professor Caldwell, a seasoned academic, was not oblivious to Ethan's interest. She had seen it before. The admiration, the infatuation that some students developed for their teachers. She knew the delicate balance she had to maintain, the fine line between fostering a student's intellectual curiosity and discouraging any inappropriate advances. She maintained a professional distance, her interactions with Ethan polite but firm, her demeanor friendly but never familiar. But Ethan was not easily deterred. He was used to getting what he wanted, and the challenge of winning over Professor Caldwell only intensified his desire. His tactics became bolder, more deliberate. He began leaving small gifts on her desk. A rare, leather-bound edition of a collection of John Donne's poems, knowing she had mentioned her admiration for his work. A bouquet of lilies, her favorite flower, their delicate fragrance filling her office. He started, coincidentally, bumping into her at the campus coffee shop, their casual encounters turning into lengthy conversations about literature, art, and their shared love of old movies. He even managed to get tickets to a local production of Hamlet, knowing it was her favorite play and invited her to join him, framing it as a purely academic outing. Professor Caldwell found herself in a precarious position. She was flattered by Ethan's attention, his gestures thoughtful and undeniably charming. She enjoyed their conversations, his sharp intellect and insightful observations, often providing a fresh perspective on texts she had taught for years. Yet, she was acutely aware of the ethical implications of engaging in any kind of personal relationship with a student. The power dynamic was inherently skewed, the potential for misinterpretation and scandal ever present. One evening, after a particularly enthralling lecture on Shakespeare's sonnets, Ethan offered to walk Professor Caldwell to her car. The campus was quiet, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the autumn breeze. As they stood in the dimly lit parking lot, the air crackling with unspoken tension, Ethan decided to make his move. He turned to face her, his blue eyes blazing with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "Professor Caldwell," he began, his voice a low, earnest murmur. "I need to be honest